Welcome to the show based on logistics on Edo Connect. Today we're with Dr. Loretta Ogboro Okor, the writer of the book My Father's Daughter. This book deals with the moral, family values, and logistics of human trafficking from Edo State. Happy New Year and welcome to the brand new show on Edo Connect called Based on Logistics, where we interview Edo personalities who are currently exposing us positively in the diaspora. With me today, I have Dr. Loretta Ogboro Okor. And I don't know if you've seen this book. I've seen it in parties, I've seen it come across my YouTube channel, and she's behind that movement. And let me welcome her, Dr. Okor.
Thank you, Mr. Alex Yamu.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Good to have you here today.
Lovely to see you. Beautiful colors.
Thank you.
Looking radiant.
We should do colors.
Is this something for the new year, or have you always been like this?
I've always been like this.
Okay.
Makes the day happier, makes the mind lighter. Colors.
I should see you every time before I go on TV.
You should.
People make me nervous. Now, let's begin. I have seen this book in parties. I saw you at the Igwe Festival. Before I go into this book, why is it very important for you that people get the message of this book?
The message in the book, My Father's Daughter, means a lot to me, and it is something that means a lot more to other people than even to me, because I believe, like, if we borrow the words from TEDs, we should spread ideas that matter. And the message in this book matters. It matters to how people live their lives. It matters to how people have a paradigm shift, especially our people.
Let me while you're communicating the need for you to push it to them, was it happening to you as you went through each chapter? When you changed gear, you said, no, they need to know about this. When you changed gear, or did you have a full picture and said, I need to talk about my life, which I'm assuming the book is talking about?
I was blessed to have a father who imbibed a lot in me. And in hindsight, when I grew up and discovered that everybody wasn't so lucky, I decided that the fastest way to put ideas in there to help other people was to put this message out in a book.
So
that means that I cannot hoard anything that is good just to me. I must unleash it on the world, put it out there. It doesn't mean everybody has to connect, but as many people as connect will find that there is a positive influence from the book.
You have to correct me before we go into this book while we're here. This for me looks like a privileged person when you say people don't connect. Say Ajebota to Ajebako. Correct me if I'm right. Good. So let me go into the book. Is that correct?
It has nothing to do with Ajebota to Ajepako. In fact, if you look at it, I know in local parlance, Ajebota means those who are privileged, and Ajepako means those who life has given the hard blow.
Less privileged.
That's what he's less privileged. But it has nothing to. In fact, if anything, you have both of it in that book. Because you have a time when I was raised in affluence, when my father buttered me.
Don't tell everybody. Don't tell everybody.
But then you also have the flip side when there was nothing.
So
it's in there. It's a book that bridges every single gap, Alex. It does.
Now we're going into it, ladies and gentlemen. It's based on logistics on Edo Connect, and I'm with Dr. Loretta Ogboro Okor.
Alex, I tell you not to do titles. I'm not a person who likes titles. Okay. Loretta is fine.
I'm with Loretta.
Yes.
You too. You should try. You should try to be with her sometimes. Now, let's go. Your father, Richard.
Yes.
He was the product of his marriage to. He was the product of a marriage to Princess Ohombi Josephine Uswanalele Ovorame,
yes,
who was the first grandchild of Oba Omonoba Nedu Ukwa Oba Ovorame, the 36th Oba of Benin.
True. It's documented in here. I was fortunate to have a dad who was bettered by people of pedigree, like you just read from the book. He was born by a woman who was the first grandchild of Oba Ovorame. Her name was Uvi Ohombie. But being his mother, they will say Oviohu. That means the child of a woman. So that is not in the patrilineal aspect of Benin culture.
Okay.
So the first sons and
Yes.
the first sons' children all go down the line of becoming others.
But because he was from the woman, but nevertheless, royalty.
Yes,
And
yes.
you got royalty.
Yes,
shit.
yes.
I can pick extracts from here where sometimes your dad was telling you in the royal household. Sometimes my dad told me stories of how my grandfather used to dispose of all his clothes annually and get new ones.
Yes, my grandparents, especially my grandfather, had swag. That's been too, Alex.
Yeah.
Yes. I always tell people that my father, Richard Harold Osarogiwa Ogboro, he brought me up saying, Loretta, you have to learn how to dine with kings and eat with paupers. As a child, I did not know what that meant. But as I got older, I realized that this man was bringing me up to be able, in wherever circumstance I find myself, to be able to feel at home, to be able to own it, to feel no disparity. Dining with kings means if you are with the affluent, you are able to hold your own.
You're comfortable in that.
In that society. And eating with paupers means if you go to a place and there is nowhere to sleep, you can lie in the chair or squeeze in the corner.
The kingdom was rich. The Benin kingdom, which your dad was a product of, and you were a product of. Before you went to boarding school, give me a summary. What did you feel of the royal, which your dad was a part of? Did you think influenced him and influenced you?
Ironically, my dad was royalty, but my dad never focused on that aspect of his life. He never made it about that. In fact, it's interesting, but my dad was one of those people who would rarely go to the palace. I remember there was a time when I was growing up and my dad visited the palace, and then the Oba of Benin at that point, we used to call him Uncle Solomon, he said, Richard, what wind blows you thither? And I started laughing because it looked like a Shakespearean exchange between the two of them, because he was asking why, because he knew my dad would seldom go there. So even though he was royalty, he never made it about that. He was one of the most humble men that you would ever come across. And in that cocoon which you mentioned, for a long time, I didn't even know that the world wasn't like that. I just thought that was the norm. Everybody could sit and chat with their fathers. We had 3 square meals to eat. We were content. We were happy. You see, being rich.
So I can interject. If you keep going, then
you can.
But so you would say, retrospectively, your dad was a hardworking, successful man.
He was. Because if you look at his early life, he was made to believe he was a prince. He didn't quite start school on time. It's in the book. But eventually, his mates who went to school came back and they were bluffing. And he decided, I have to go to this thing called school. Mm-hmm. Because ironically, in the early days, sometimes those who were called princes were not sent to school.
Yes.
Yes. So he then decided at that point that he would go to school, and his mother had been praying that he goes to school. So I think he somehow had a realization along the line that this royalty thing doesn't necessarily tick all the boxes. Yes. It can only get you thus far. You have to first know who you are. It gives you pedigree, it gives you platform, but that's where it ends.
So when you got to boarding school, shock to your system.
The bubble burst.
Yeah, thank you.
It did burst because Federal Benin is one of the best schools. I will still say that. It's one of the best things that happened to me. But imagine, first of all, getting to school and you have to take your bath with 100 more children.
It's in the book. They say take your
exactly, and you're wondering, really in this cold? And none of us wants to take our bath. And we are all looking at the other to take off their clothes first. And then you get past that hurdle and you get to the dining hall. For me, Alex, till today, I can't eat any food that is hot.
Yeah.
I actually have post-traumatic stress disorder. From when I got to boarding house, the food was piping hot and I had to finish it in 20 minutes. Otherwise, it would be taken away.
So this was...
And I will be hungry.
There's
And the food was tiny portions. But it was enough to nourish our brains and get us to study. Because I think we still turned out all right.
Oh, great. There was a lot of parts where... you spoke about your boarding experience, a lot of things that were strange to your life.
Yes.
And there was also some parts where your mom didn't really approve of you being away.
My mom never wanted me to be far away from home. Same thing with my dad. He never quite wanted me to be far away from home. I think there was somewhere there where I wrote about going to the gifted children's school. And my dad put up the argument that you don't remove the extra bright students from a group of people because you reduce competition and you don't help the others. But thinking back, I think perhaps daddy didn't just want me to go to faraway Suleja. But by and large, I'm quite happy that I went to Federal Benin. It gave me a platform to understand the different people in life, different backgrounds. And also, that was where I began to understand that even if the world doesn't like you and you have an idea, stick to your idea and you will see it happen.
Bubbles about to burst.
Big time.
Big time. University. Ajebota to Ajekpako was how we started. Now it's Ajebota to Ajekpako. I think that's
double
where
Pako.
I think that's where we're going. So your father died.
Yes.
First year medical school.
No, actually, second year going on third year, daddy passed on, and that's when the big bubble really, really bursted.
All your dreams were moving.
Yes, but then they became really shattered because first and foremost, daddy was a serial monogamist, I think, kind of coined that word. So I have siblings from other...
we like to say he was loved by many.
He was loved by many women. He was a handsome man. But what that means, I have stepbrothers, I have half sisters, half brothers. So when daddy died, first of all, I've never seen that number of family meetings. Alex, it was terrible. Imagine we're just children and they would do one family meeting after the other. Relatives I've never known. And daddy asked to be cremated, and the royal family part was like, you don't burn our son. What is all this about? Because daddy was a Rosicrucian, a very staunch one for 49 years. And he left instructions. He wanted a Rosicrucian burial and he wanted to be cremated. And the whole family was like, oh, no. At the end of the day, he didn't get cremated, but he got a Rosicrucian burial.
Yeah.
Now, I write in the book that after the burial, there was a palpable silence. Everybody dispersed. We didn't see anybody. And don't forget, my father was really ill before he passed on, so all his resources were depleted.
But during the period of illness, there were still loads of family members.
There were people there, but when the man dies...
Did he know that his condition... Did your father give any...
He had an inkling that he would pass on early because, mind you, he was about 30 years older than my mom.
Yeah,
and we were the children of the last wife. So I always often used to say that we sustained my father in his later days. We gave him a reason to live on, just like he kind of built in us. But the truth is, even when you are a teacher, not all your students imbibe what you teach.
Yes.
So he had a good and willing mentee and student in me, and he spent his time reinforcing all his teachings as if he knew he was going to go, as if somewhere in his subconscious he was preparing me.
Was that in his later days, or was that it was consistent?
It was consistent. It was really, really consistent. He started it right from when I was a child.
In his later days, where he with whatever energy he had left, was he trying to tell you something?
He was trying to tell me something.
Okay.
In hindsight, it became clearer. It was sort of, if I am not here, these are the ways to make your choices, my daughter. He didn't come at it directly and impose it on me, but instead, subtly, with everyday events, with stories, with teachings, he made me formulate choices, and he made me formulate confidence.
Your father passed. The situation changed.
It did, Alex.
How drastic?
It was drastic, really bad. After Daddy died, nobody was back on the scene. Everybody went AWOL, and friends and relatives who were close to Daddy, we didn't see again. After the burial, everybody just went their different ways. Then a new set of people started showing up.
When you say new set?
These were people who were always in the fringes, in the periphery. My mother's relatives, my dad's relatives, who had gotten some sort of new status in our emergent society then. They were the madams. They were the aunties who suddenly became rich. We don't know how they became rich. When my dad was alive, we didn't see many of these people come into our household. My dad seemed to be a shield.
But you knew them as
But we
friends
knew
and
them, yes, they were
family.
family.
Yeah.
My mother grew up with some of them. Some of them were my dad's extended relatives. You know how in Benin, your aunt's mother's is a relative.
Yes.
So they began to come. First, they came to pay condolences.
Yes.
Other times, they came to help. And then gradually, subtly, the tone started changing.
When you say the tones, that they started noticing your situation getting harder.
Yes. They started noticing the situation getting harder. And they came on the pretext that they came to do something about it. But actually, I don't think they came to do something about it. I think, knowing now that they came to come and see if we could become money-making machines for them.
You see, the book is very interesting, because the breakdown and the suspense value you gave us in the book, we who grew up in Benin,
yes,
it was an everyday life, and your book was very interesting because it's the first time you paint a picture of what we were seeing and how it made sense. To say your situation was getting harder, very hard. Your mom was the last wife.
Yes.
You were the senior in your mom, and there was so much hardship. Your sister was ill.
Yes.
No.
Alex, let's call a spade a spade. Let's be real, okay? I am not writing from some other person's experience. I am writing things that happened to me in my life, and they are still happening. What became our own lot then in life is probably happening to someone as you and I are speaking right now. And what happened is that when Daddy died, the people around us morphed. There was a metamorphosis. And the first thing that happened was that everybody came to pay condolence. There was that period of noise when you felt everybody was with you. And after a while, it was all gone. Where we would get the next meal from became a problem. The news was tightening. Alex, there was a time the roof was leaking. When it was going to rain, our heartbeats would go very fast because we don't know the bed would be wet.
Have you approached? Did you talk to some relatives?
Yes, some people who weren't even relatives came to help, and it's documented in this book. But then, when the situation became really, really bad, there were those who came with the pretext of wanting to help, but they were not there to help. They were there for their personal gains, and I will explain that. It's right there in the book, and this is what's happening in our society. Alex, in our world, think back, in your family, you're a Benin man. Do you know those aunties who are traffickers?
No, but
are they still there? They were there in my time. We didn't call them that. They were all these big aunties from Lagos, Iyimanohua from Eko, or Emamano Rukbo Nodiakima, or by that I mean the auntie that lives on the road next to us. But
you know why I'm laughing?
When they come, all they said, Alex, they came with certain gospels. One, my brother is the best thing that happened to mankind. He lives in the US. Send one of your daughters to marry him. The other one would come and say, oh, my daughters are now in Italy. They just got me 2 cars last week. And they look at my mom. Why are you struggling to send these children to school, to uni, when all you are a petty trader, when you can send them to Italy and they can make you richer?
How many were you?
Oh, there was my big sister, myself, my younger sister, and the last one who is a girl. So there were many girls and just one boy. So they saw that as a fertile ground. Mind you, Alex, they want the girls more than they want the boys.
Yes.
So some of them, it was bad because my mom could not just say, get up, get out and leave my house, because these were her relatives and they were older. Don't forget, we are an ageist society culturally.
They were your father's relatives, your mother's relatives,
yes,
people you know, people
from
that
the
are
inside. They were not from the outside. No, and they don't come and tell you it's trafficking, Alex.
No.
They just tell you that you're going to go abroad to either marry their brother, or in the case where they were not your direct relatives, or those who were your relatives who tell you you were going to go and work on a farm in Italy.
But wait, were they talking to your mom and you managed to hear, or were they talking to you?
Oh, there were different groups. There were those groups who would come and prey on my mom's mind, because at that point in time she was vulnerable, and there were those groups who would come directly to me because somehow they saw me as the obstacle in our home. So
they talk to you. I want you, because I see, you know, when you're talking about it, I like the book because you're emotional about it.
I am very emotional about the subject.
I want to, because I have never seen somebody.
Because I've been to Europe and I've seen many girls who have
went
been
through the same.
They've been lured either by errors of omission or commission, either directly or indirectly, to go into Europe and do things they never really wanted to do, or some of them things they wanted to do.
But when say they come to your house and they tell your mom, did your mom come and tell you, or were you hearing when they were talking to your mom?
Okay, initially it started like they would approach my mom and tell my mom, and my mom would tell them, don't let my daughters hear, especially that one. And my mom won't tell me.
Did your mom ever tell them, get out of my house?
No, my mom is not that kind of personality.
She couldn't, because she saw other people going, or what? Why?
At a point in time, actually, my mom started considering it. You know, sometimes in life, and this is why I am not here to blame anybody or cast aspersions on anybody, because I know, and this is why we should hear it from people like me. When you are hungry, Alex, and you've not eaten in 2 days, and someone comes to tell you that there is food there, trust me, it takes the will of Gibraltar for you not to do things that you would otherwise not do to get that food there.
So as you're saying it to me, I'm reading the book, I'm imagining the women, because there were so many women in Benin who looked in now. When I look at them, they had a look. They had drivers, new cars, gele and stuff in the morning, and they visit everybody, and they look very polished.
Let me break it down for those who would watch this interview and who know or have an idea what I'm talking about. My mother is from Ogbe in Benin. We know some prominent names from Ogbe that went to Italy. You know, we know what they came back looking like and doing.
They said they were all selling gold, but I'm surprised.
Well,
now.
Gold in quotes.
Was it
gold in quote? We know that may have been a front.
It looks like a front.
Yes, but what was going on behind that gold was another kind of gold.
So they were all traffickers.
Yes, there were many of them. You can't say all, because in life there is no all or none. But majority were dealing in human trafficking.
That's good.
And it's sad, because in those 90s, those late 90s, early 2000, it was a time when our society was turning on its head, because the traditional Benin woman, the traditional Benin society was such that there was a pride of place for women.
It was working. The society was working at that time. But I want to say, your mom come and talk to you. Were you hearing it when they were telling your mom? Did they ever skip your mom, or did they finish with your mom?
No, there were times some would come and be talking to my mom, and my mother would be sat there looking at them and looking at me, or maybe I'm doing something, or my other siblings. And it got to a stage they got bolder, and they would say, "Oh, I'm talking to you. What are you doing at home? Why don't you go to Italy and stop your mother from suffering? You're such a wicked child. Your mother is suffering like this." Wanting to employ emotional blackmail. And then there was one who openly told me that all the girls in the university are prostitutes anyway. That they either sleep with the lecturers or they sleep with the politicians. That instead of being paid in tiny naira, why don't I go abroad and be paid in euro and dollars?
How many a day?
And she had a point, though. That was a valid argument, depending on how you look at it.